Let's talk about fear because fear is a very strong emotion, and fear is something that drives us all. And primarily, fear is something that stops us from action. It kills realities in our life, which is why, for me, fear is the closest thing to the opposite of love. A lot of people feel that hate or anger is the opposite of love, but really for me, it's fear because love is a very opening force. It is in line with the flow of the universe. You've heard people say everything is love. Okay, so if everything is love, what is the opposite of that? What is the thing that stops the flow? Anger, somebody said indifference, which I would say emotionally is equal to apathy. So we've got anger, apathy, greed, pride. What are the negative emotions? These things are still action oriented. If you're anger, you're going to be motivated into action. It's not necessarily the opposite of doing. It's not necessarily the opposite of flow. For me, fear stops, fear blocks, fear paralyzes. And it just so happens because it's the opposite of love, according to this paradigm that I'm setting up, which isn't, I'm not saying is the end all be all, but it's a perspective of truth that I like to take. Within this perspective, you have fear and love at different poles of the same thing, different poles like temperature, right? Hot and cold. And the cool thing about fear is that if you go through it, you receive the opposite of fear, which is flow, abundance, love. And that's where the sayings such as the treasure that you seek is within the cave that you fear most. I probably butchered that, but something along those lines. Wherever you're afraid of going to is where the treasure you seek. And so fear can really be used as a guiding light. When we sense that we have fear, there's darkness there, there's paralysis there, there's doubt, there's fear. And the remedy to that is to go into it. Now, some of us have debilitating fear all the time, and we don't know why. It's stuck in our body. And when it's stuck in our body, it's blocking, again, the flow of energy that's coming up from the root, the creative energy that's coming up from the root of our system, up through the channels of our spine into our higher centers, where we can make sense of it and project it out into manifestation. Once again, what comes out of the root? The legs do, right? The roots, the legs. And so the legs orient us in the direction that we're going. The legs walk towards something. So when the legs are blocked, there's fear there. It's paralyzed the legs. We are not moving. We must move our legs in through the fear. And building this skill is something that will pay off. Kayla, I'm not really sure if that's how you pronounce her name. She says, again, my roots in the universe. I usually take the perspective that everything is absolutely great and good and loving and abundant. And I flip flop back and forth on this throughout my life. And I can witness myself doing that. I've been in places where I have been fearful. I've been in places where that fear turned into anger and domination. And it fueled me to compete in sports and fight and win in business and grind. and eventually come over to the other side of the spectrum where there's acceptance and love. And when you're in these certain areas of practice, it's really difficult to imagine being somewhere else. That is a skill of its own. And so a lot of people are in this everything is love, everything is light. There there is no light without darkness though, right? There needs to be shadows within the light. All matter causes shadow. Matter is fundamentally going to influence light, block light, slow down light. That's what this whole realm is. And so only focusing on one area, whether it's anger, pride, fear, love, wherever you're at, flow through that and eventually integrate. And so if you find yourself feeling like I don't fear anything, that's a great place to be in. I'm suggesting that you may just have your eyes closed to certain fears, and that if you dig and dig and dig and dig, you'll find something. And the beauty about it is that once again, there's a cave that you fear to enter there. And just because you're admitting that there's no caves doesn't actually mean that they're not there. And the great thing about them being there is that you get treasure, you get more flow if you are constantly unpeeling the layers of your fears, of your hates, of your enemies, of your heroes. And so this is just an invitation to make sure that we're not blindly in a dogmatic state of being because we've determined that that's who we are in this chapter. It's great to be there. It's great to practice, but also be aware. Have awareness that it is a stage and you too will develop beyond the state of being that you're at right now. If you feel like you've arrived, just remember how you were 15 years ago when you felt like you arrived then. And imagine how much you've grown in the last 15 years and realize that in the next 15 years, in the next 15 days, you can grow if you're open to it. Don't get stuck. Synchronicity and Kundalini activations lately. I DOS myself paralyzed and integrated my legs. Years before, I was going through intense fears, watching in meditation day by day. Not sure what that means, but if that was a poem, that was awesome. Okay, so I asked my what's it called? This little group in Instagram. A lot of people, I asked what their fears were. What is this thing called? Like this tips for a broadcast channel. So I asked the broadcast channel, what fears hold you stuck? And there's a lot of responses. A lot of them revolved around people's own self, right? Fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of my own rage, fear of not being good enough, fear that I won't figure it out in time, fear that I'm not living to my full potential. That's all internal stuff, right? We've got other fears that are externally based, like abandonment. Another internal is fear of commitment, anxiety, fear of not knowing, fear of being invisible is technically both, but it's also an external thing because you're reflecting on how others see you. Fear of people seeing me as unworthy, fear of people just seeing me as a whore, fear of moving forward on my own, fear of failing. So, most of the fears, I mean, I'm just flipping through them. Fear of not living up to my own potential. I think I already said that. But most of the fears are all internal, right? And that's the amazing thing because it's just a program, right? It's all made up. It's all a reflection of self. which means that all of the fear for these people, what they're saying is holding them stuck. It's all an internal game. It's all something that they don't need anybody. They don't need a book. They don't need a blog post. They don't need a retreat. They don't need a breathwork session. They don't need an ayahuasca session, a mushroom session, a cannabis session, whatever. They don't need any of that to face their fear. The cure for fear is going through it, is experiencing it. Because all of these things, fear of failure, fear of not knowing, fear of people criticizing, that's even external, fear of never being appreciated and respected, fear of not being able to surpass past accomplishments. If there is a magic button where this person could get rid of this fear, it would probably look in a way where they actually do something and find out if people are going to find out if they're going to surpass their accomplishments or not. And the thing is, if they don't, if their fear comes true, it's usually not as bad as not knowing if it's going to be true or not, right? So you got 50-50 chance, right? It's either going to be true or false. And either one of those is usually way less fearful, way less damaging than just the fear itself, right? The only thing to fear is fear itself. And the reason for that is because you've touched it, you've witnessed it, you've been there. And when we've been somewhere, it's not so frightful, right? It's like being in a cave, it's really dark. We don't know what's there. As soon as the lights flip on, instant fear goes out the window because now we're able to perceive it. We're able to witness it. It's the same thing with everything on that list. It's all people fearing things that they don't know. They've made up and they've distanced themselves from it. They're not going there and turning on the light. And so the fear just keeps on bottling up and getting greater and greater and greater. And they get further and further and further and further away from going into that cave. And almost to the fact where they don't even know anymore why they're not going into that cave. They might have had a fear of being seen out in public at one point, and then so they quit going out in public. And then all of a sudden, 15 years go by, they haven't been out to a restaurant in 15 years, and they don't even know why. It's just, they've justified, "Oh, I don't like going to restaurants because the food's unhealthy. I don't like going to restaurants because I don't like dressing up. I don't like going to restaurants because it costs more money." They've justified around their fear. And I'm just generalizing off the top of my head. We all do this with things. Someone's asking what cave. The treasure that you seek is in the cave that you fear most, is what I'm referring to. If we just do our fears, we solve them, right? It's like we then find out, we turn on the light and we find out, oh, somebody called me a bad word. And that's what I was afraid of. And now that they called me a bad word, I actually am okay with that. At least I know no more fear. Okay. Dutch Orgone Energy. Thanks for the comment. How about trying to look differently at everything? Try to visualize everything in frequent, maybe frequency visual as waves. The particles vibrating, communicating, beneficial, unbeneficial. Try do the math. Might have to explain that one a little bit more. Avoiding so many issues. Just try to pick one thing and try it. Avoiding so many issues. So this person is asking, should I just pick one thing and try it? What I suggest is to analyze the thing that you're afraid of and look at it from a practical standpoint and do an analysis of the cost of you doing it versus you not doing it. And what you'll find out is if you use logic you can logically see that there's really nothing to fear. You auditioning for that role or applying for that job or putting the song that you've been working on YouTube or going to an open mic night with your poetry or talking to that person or saying hi to everybody that you come across all day long. All of that, you can pick one and logically say, what am I actually afraid of here? And we can do a root cause analysis, right? Where you're like, am I afraid of that? Or am I afraid of something else? And why am I afraid of that? And why am I afraid of that? And you might find out that you were bullied as a kid, and maybe that's why you don't like interacting with people, or your dad used to beat you. So that's why you have trouble asking your boss for something, right? So there might be some root cause issues that you discover in this. But again, that's all a program that you've learned to guard yourself. Now, the good thing about that, so once we've logically exposed our fears and maybe done some root cause analysis and found something else that's deeper, I'm not going to talk about how to deal with that, but that's also another issue that we can uncover. But we still have this thing that we're fearful of because we are protecting ourselves. There's a defense mechanism for this root trauma that we have. So now the question is, what do we do about the fear? So, first of all, is be grateful for it. You must thank your programming always. If you're getting rid of a program, hating it, being angry, feeling stupid, that's not the way that you get rid of it because it has served a great purpose for you. Coming from a state of gratitude is going to release attachment from it. If you're angry at yourself that you're carrying around this program, you are sinking your nails deeper into it emotionally because you're investing anger now into it. And now it's this thing and this identity that you're angry that you've been acting this way. So we have to get our nails out of it. Any sort of feelings that are strong, anger, sadness, fear, pain, we 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 got to dig ourselves out of that and be grateful. Be grateful that we've been acting this way, even though it costs us a lot in our life. Be grateful because at a certain point in your life, you needed that program to exist. That program protected you. And if we can find that, that can usually allow us to jostle out of programs. First, be thankful for it, and then come to the determination that you've graduated the need for it. And if you say this out loud, if you write this down, if you do a ceremony, if you burn a piece of paper and you have it written down and you burn the piece of paper, that's what I mean by ceremony. I'm not talking about getting with four friends and dropping some acid type ceremony. I'm talking about something that's meaningful for you. Watch as it burns and turns back into vapor, into the ether. Literally, like feel it coming out of you and dissolving into the ether. And then it's go time. What are you now freed up to go do? Face that fear. At 8, I need to wake up and go to work again, and then I will release all the stuff I was working on YouTube. Sweet. Vibrations, high, low, balance, unbalance, positive, negative, fear, bliss, guess. Low vibrations, a lot of people have I'm not gonna talk about that, but you can actually hear vibrations when they're low. It's this reverberation. You hear that it comes to the present moment in and out of it. Higher vibrations are quicker and they're more in the present moment. The faster and quicker that they go. And so we can think of vibrational state as that. The more that we are in the present moment, the higher our vibration. And it also it has a different resonance. And that all has to do with shape. I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody. He just texted me, and he's a Russian physicist, and he wrote a book on geometry, and it's like the next level of what geometry is. He continued on the work from Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he wrote a book, Music of the Divine Spheres. I don't think I have it on my desk right now. But if you're into music, if you're into geometry, that book is amazing. If you've read The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by Drunvalo Melchizedek, having to do with consciousness and vibration and shape and directionality and tone, these are all very complex subjects that are generally above my level of thinking. However, I know it's foundational. But I'm going to be happy to explore into him. We've actually he English is his probably his third or fourth or fifth language, but we've already discussed the questions and the answers, and that interview is coming soon. But he explains why a lot of our math is a little bit skewed as well, which I'm really excited to talk about because math is something that we put rockets into outer space with. But if it's a little bit off, it'll still work, but it's a little bit off. Kind of as we go deeper and deeper into consciousness, we're going to be off the mark. Walking into a job that gave me my 2 weeks notice, fully knowing that I did my best work and God's got a better plan for me. No victim, grateful, letting God or letting go. Yes. Yes. Music of the Divine Spheres is the name of that book. Take care, everybody. I'll be back on here 12 Pacific time tomorrow on the Human Garage channel going live. I will also be in Austin, Texas, May 12th, presenting with the Human Garage crew. You can check that out, humangarage.net, rawoferarth.com for all the things that I'm doing. Speaking of that book was super complex. I couldn't even get through the second chapter and just started taking this supplement that you can find info on my website. It's for the pineal gland to decalcify it. And after 5 days of taking that, I tried reading the book again and I zipped through it in 3 days. I've been getting pulled out of my dreams in the morning, like pulled out with like messages. This morning it was really weird. Really weird. I was with a very, very, very wealthy person that everybody knows, but they were like not spending money. Anyways, so it was this whole analogy of the wealthy people and how they live and how they relate to money. And it's essentially the opposite of what we all feel. And that was just like the message I got this morning. And then it recalibrates my day a little bit. Anyways, I feel like my pineal gland definitely getting decalcified because I drank tap water my whole entire life. There's a video that I made like maybe 5 days ago. Just look on my profile, pineal gland, and watch that video. Take care, everybody.